hate to say it, but I mean, it's like golf clubs. I mean, you really can't roll up with one club.
Holy tarnation.
So you're gonna be like, surfing sucks.
There's more like semi-amateurs out there probably than semi-pros.
Everyone has a different opinion of what a fish is.
I talk everyone out of their boards.
Walking into a room like this can be overwhelming, to say the least.
Almost read their mind and try to figure out what bullshit they're giving you.
Are you kind of catching waves or kind of not catching waves?
You're gonna be able to surf better in different conditions.
Everything, I always thought that you wanted to have like the most performance bladey kind of shortboard, and that's what I put all my focus on. And then recently I kind of took a step back.
You can really ride any board you want in any conditions.
The front side too, you don't go quad backside.
Yeah.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
All right, here we are at the Mecca. Here's the thing, if you want to buy a surfboard, a surf shop is a good place to start. This is Heritage Surf Shop, Margate, New Jersey, and we're gonna go in here and see what the surf lords have to say about how the frick do I choose the right surfboard. We're going in, we need the master.
Yeah.
What's up, gentlemen? How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Feeling good.
Oh, you hit the sail rack?
Yeah, man, they had it going on. Always at Heritage. Closed.
Oh, you nailed it.
Yeah, man, can't go wrong. You coming to the Gutter Drunk show, June 7th?
Dude, I'm gonna be out of town. We were just literally with Will. Had to break the news to him.
We'll make it happen
Sadly.
another time.
We're gonna go up there. All right, so naturally, if you're an inexperienced surfer, or even a pretty experienced surfer, walking into a room like this can be overwhelming, to say the least. Look at all these boards. Long boards, short boards, mid-length, hipster boards, Rob Machado fishes, losts. Actually, the Ben Gravy boards were supposed to be here by now, but they're not. They got lost in the mail. Look at all these mid-lengths, long boards, and soft tops. How the hell do you pick the right one?
First of all, I ask people like their ability, what they're trying to accomplish, you know? That's like the big thing. Kind of have that rapport with them, you know, so they can figure out exactly where they're at in their surfing and stuff like that.
Do you find that a lot of people are trying to get on a board that might be a little bit too
aggressive
small for them, or a little aggressive for them?
Yeah, well, most people usually embellish their ability, typically,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, just
I'm one of
by by nature, there's more like semi-amateurs out there probably than semi-pros. So basically you try to make sure that those guys understand that. I usually say like, what kind of conditions are you riding? How much time have you spent surfing? How quickly can you get up on the board? And that's where I usually get the feedback of where I kind of really see like, if it's a proper surfer, they know like how to answer those questions.
Most people are probably looking for a board to surf 3 to 6 foot waves, essentially.
Out front surf, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like waist to head high, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like chest
Yeah.
high, head
Yeah.
high, or maybe they'll get out there on a hurricane swell,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily need an advanced board because they could probably use an all-arounder.
Yeah.
How would you guide, like, where are they going? Because there's fishes, there's round tails, there's...
I mean, average Joe, I usually go like high performance wide. Your board, that Ben Gravy model was based on like what we usually put people on out front. So it's like a high performance board that works well because it's got a little more volume, a little wider, so it's easier for people to catch waves, and then it's smaller as well, so it fits our pocket of the wave, you know, because we have a kind of a tighter, bowlier, usually beach break, so it's to keep that rail line really tight.
Is there an all-around board that can encompass all that, where they're gonna surf the big days in Jersey, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think almost every board is probably just about achievable for people to do that. I usually say like, hey, what are you gonna surf 90% of the time? So that's what I want to make sure people have the ability to go, all right, I want to go out front and I want to make sure they have a good time. I mean, how many times they get pumping and, you know, they're chasing draining barrels. Usually people have that second board to be able to do that step up or whatever you want to call it, or that true high performance board. If like it's an intermediate person, swallowtail, but like definitely something that's like, you know, wider. But ideally, I mean, like we have our board that we did with John with Pizel, this one. But like you can see, like forward volume, big in the front.
We're still gonna get it done here.
Nice, yeah. And it's nice and low rocker, but then like it's got a nice swallowtail on the back, kind of like, I don't know, old school MR, kind of fluted wings. Allows for a lot more maneuverability, but you're gonna get a lot of projection, a lot of drive.
Wide tail block versus narrow.
So narrow's gonna hold. It won't feel quite as skatey. It'll knife up hopefully on your rail here, so you'll be able to maneuver back and forth, and it'll have a little bit more hold as it's tighter in the wave because it's gonna sit a little bit.
But you're saying a board with something like this in the tail, but a little bit more foam in the front, you'll still be able to go out on
When
an
it's
average day.
yeah, like a good day surfing, you can still allows you to do those things, I mean, it doesn't scale up to like spinning barrels, but
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on like who you're kind of talking to. Most guys aren't buying one board if they're approaching that level, they're gonna have probably 3 boards, honestly. They're gonna have something for like really small surf, fishy.
What's the perfect 3-board quiver?
Do you want models or do you want like just
I don't care,
variation?
whatever, anything you have in here or something that you can just kind of dream up.
Dream up, I think for my perfect would be like an alt board, like an album, that style board, that swallowtail, like a fish or something like that. That's just fun, like all around, high volume, buy it like almost big, kind of thing. And then secondly, I would get like what we talked about, the high performance wide. That's like kind of your everyday board. Small wave, short board, or all arounder. I'm riding the Big Ripper, at 5'11".
So
for me.
what's your average shortboard?
Be
Or like your normal board?
6'1", would be my proper. Yeah, so it's like an inch to 2 inches smaller. And then you can feel it's a knifier rail.
Do you believe in groveling, or you gave up on that? Would you ever are you taking this out on a 1 foot day, or
No,
are you waiting until
no,
it's like
yeah. I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Back in the day, maybe.
Back in the day, I would for sure. I mean, if I like this thing can ride any wave that's out front if you have ability. Yeah. Number 3 would be the step up. Would be everyone knows the Ghost probably from Paisel. Yeah. That's like John's like kind of step up vibe. Another one would be we have like a step driver here, and this would be like, as you can see, pulled tail, all the elements of like a real step up surfboard. Yeah, so this is get barreled, but really hold. Short answer would be whatever you see out front 90% of the time, go right to like high performance wide. What do you yeah, exactly. That's it.
I don't even have like, if I wanted to go surf backdoor on the proper board, I don't even have one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the type of surfer that I don't really care. I'll just make it happen if
right. Well,
it is what it is. But
you ride probably one of the most challenging type of equipment in big surf,
Yeah.
Softboards. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
But that's a good challenge. So it's good.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm more confused than ever.
All right. Perfect.
I actually was genuinely confused walking away from that conversation. But after editing this and watching it over 3 times, I realized that Kevmo actually made it pretty simple. If you can afford it, you should have a fish of some sort, a high performance wide, and a step up board. But the short answer is 90% of the time, 90% of surfers are not charging overhead tubes. So the board to get is a high performance wide shortboard. This answered a lot of questions for me because for the past 10 years, I've strayed away from the typical high performance shortboard. And a lot of people think I'm nuts for that, but I'm kind of learning that I've actually been onto something. When I used to ride for Superbrand, I surfed the Unit, and now with my own board line, I'm using the Semi Pro, which is exactly that. A board that I can use in 2 foot to 8 foot surf and everything in between. It's a few inches shorter than my standard shortboard and a little bit wider with a little more float. And I've truly been able to ride this board anywhere from 1 foot beach break in New Jersey to overhead waves in Panama, overhead barrels in New Jersey, and pretty much all types of conditions. So I know from personal experience that this works. High performance wide can get you through 90% of your surfing needs. I think we've got a solid understanding of what happens in a surf shop. Our next mission is to talk to Brian Wynn, a local shaper here in New Jersey, to see what goes down in the shaping bay.
All right, we just rolled up to Wynn Surfboards, hanging out with Brian Wynn, local legend. What better person to guide us to how to choose the right surfboard than a shaper himself? We're dreaming.
Well, if you're coming to me. First things first is I'm gonna like to find out what exactly has worked for you in the past. Bring a board that's worked for you in the past, or kind of know maybe a make and model that you've had success with, whether it even be a foam board or an existing board that's worked for you. That's a starting point. If you don't have any of that, then then we kind of have to kind of figure out, okay, which direction do you want to go? It's narrowing things down, length, thickness, and stuff like that.
Do you come across a lot of guys who maybe embellish their ability a little bit?
You will. Some guys will downplay their ability. Sometimes they'll embellish their ability, yeah. I've had a little bit of both. You kind of got to play doctor here. You got to kind of figure out what's truth and what's not. And it's not always easy because a lot of times you want to give the person what they want, but you also got to cut through all the BS of, what they think they want.
Do you ever just have to give someone what they need?
It's tough because if you're not giving them what they want, then they're not going to be happy in the end. The best customers are the ones that come to me and say, kind of tell me what I need. You know what I mean? Instead of them telling me what they want. That's the main thing is you got to be a little more open-minded and not be so narrow-minded in thinking that you want a certain thing when you probably need something else. 9 times out of 10, most surfers need more foam than less foam. That's a big hindrance to most people.
They go with less foam because they think a smaller board's going to make them rip harder?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the mindset for years. I mean, that's been hanging on from the 90s. That, everyone thinks that if it looks like a blade, and that's what you want, and that's what it's going to work. You know what I mean? But the reality of it is you need something that's going to, float you and paddle you and get into the waves. I mean, still paddle in sport.
What are you making the most of?
A lot of these days are fishes. I mean, it really is it's a mixed bag. I mean, anywhere from longboards. Here in New Jersey, you can always use a longboard. You can always use a fish. Shortboards are something that, when the waves get good, so you're really got to decide where you're going to go. But a lot of mid-lengths are popping up now.
Is there an all-around board that you could suggest for an East Coast surfer, or even like a Southern California surfer, that if they could only ever buy one board?
I guess it really depends on the surfer and what, because some are more geared towards longer boards. If you're a short boarder, here I would suggest a fish would be probably the most widely used. If you're riding bigger boards, it could be an egg or a longboard. So it really depends on the rider. Like a mid-length, yeah.
So what is a fish?
Well, everyone has a different opinion on what a fish is. Some people think a swallowtail this big is a fish. Well, that's just a shortboard with a swallowtail. Something like this with a wide swallow like that, I would consider this more of a real fish once they get a little wider tail. You can't say that this board right here is a fish, but some people will call them fishes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Which is ridiculous. But
yeah.
you get a lot of people that will say, hey, I want a fish, but really what they're thinking is that they want a high performance swallowtail.
And what is it?
That would be it's kind of an all-around shortboard. We glassed that for we glassed that for Vince from Planet Blue. He's been doing it for a long time too.
Is he a Jersey guy?
Jersey guy, yeah.
Really?
He's from LBI area.
That's a squash tail shortboard.
Yeah, that would be like a step up for me anyway. That's something that I'd ride travel,
Is this your
kind of a
board?
travel gun. Yeah, I took this thing to Indo. I didn't get to ride it a bunch. I had a travel board in mind for this.
6'8"?
6'8", yeah.
What is the deal with rocker?
Well, the flatter the board, the faster the board's going to paddle and trim. So the more rocker you have, the more bend you have in a board, the longer it takes for the water to travel from point A to point B. So if you got a flatter board, it travels faster, just like a skimboard. It is able to travel fast because it's flat.
Or a piece of plywood.
Or a piece of plywood, yeah, or a door.
and
Yeah.
you're surfing big waves.
Yeah.
Are you kind of slowing down on purpose?
Yes. In fact, that sometimes you want that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to slow down a little bit, especially with a wave with power, because you need to harness that speed a little bit. You know, you could be cooking 300 miles an hour down the line, but have no control.
Rocker actually helps you gain control of power and speed of the wave.
Yes, that along with the bottom too. So there's a bottom configuration you gotta take into consideration.
Like this.
So you've got single concave, which kind of runs like that, and then this one actually has V. So it means this part is higher than here, and what that does is it allows you to give you more rail-to-rail control, a little more positive control.
So this is for bank vaults, like.
This is for solid, for solid Indo.
And why this?
This is actually a Bonzer setup, 6-inch center fin with 2 small angled side bites. That's a whole nother, fins are a whole nother ball of wax.
I think this video is just gonna.
Yeah, we can keep going.
No, we're going. We're just gonna keep going, but I'm gonna be confused editing.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
There's a theory behind how this works.
Now, is that for control or speed?
That's more for control
Okay.
and for speed, for both. So yeah, so fins can be a whole nother topic.
Every board I bust out just gets more complicated.
I know. The meat and potatoes would be the board design, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Fins are kind of the icing on the cake.
Might as well show 'em a fish.
Yeah, that's a fish. That's my fish, and that one actually is a twinser. So we're going to get more involved with different fins.
So this board has a little bit of rocker too.
So this does have a little bit of rocker. It's relatively flat looking from the deck. I like something that's obviously not too flat and not too rockered out. So somewhere kind of in between. But you can ride these on good waves as well.
When I rode yours on good first street though, dude, it was zinging. It was
Yeah.
almost like lifting out of the water.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes they're too fast.
Yeah, it was too fast.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like the back is lifting
Yeah.
up. Then I had that surprising aerial.
Yeah.
It was just like, wait,
Yeah,
where'd I
yeah.
get the speed for that?
Oh, I'm Ben Gravy. Look at this air. Whoa, lofty guy, hey.
The other thing is the planing area back here. So this is good for flatter, mushier waves because it's got a lot of planing area. Whereas if you start pulling the tail in and you start getting a tight tail, you need a better wave for it. This is just going to maybe get too much speed and better surf.
If this wave starts standing
Right.
up and becomes a real wave, as opposed to a mushy flat wave, this wide tail is going to actually project you out of the pocket.
So it's going to project you out of the pocket, which you don't necessarily always want. This particular board actually can hold though in a barrel because this kind of operates as like a point.
Get in there.
Yeah, but you might find yourself sometimes going faster than you want to, and you can't get as deep, or you outrun the barrel.
Is there a single board that you could get away with everything on, or in this day and age, do you need a 3-board quiver minimum?
I hate to say it, but I mean it's like golf clubs. I mean you really can't roll up with one club. Or, I mean, you can. I mean, if you know the conditions. So you could technically ride any board in any condition, but it's not going to be ideal.
I came to terms with the fact that I literally have a 12-board quiver.
Yeah.
Like, I drive around in my van with 12 boards, but I use them all. So
I know. I mean, you kind of do need to pick and choose what you think is going to be right. Some days the fish might not be right. You could use a longboard if you wanted to an overhead surf, but that's not always the right choice either.
Ideal 3-board quiver.
You need a standard shortboard that works in most conditions. If you're a shortboarder, you want a standard shortboard and you want a fish. I mean, to me, this is a must-have, a fish of some sort, whether it's a twinser fish or this one's a twin keel right here. This is more traditional. And then you might want something bigger, you know.
Like a step up.
The step up, yeah. Just a little fuller outline. That's for me. I mean, I'm a bigger guy, so I like something. You know, I don't. You know, for me, gone are the days of riding the needle style shortboards. You know.
Do you grovel?
If I grovel, it's on a longboard or it's on a fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's been the reaction from everyone.
Yeah.
Which is different because when I was in high school, I had a 510.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
27 liters, grovel, double overhead, chest high, onshore, offshore. That was it. But it's getting more fun.
That was the kind of the old mentality, I think. You know, things are changing. Everybody's a little different on what they prefer as far as like shortboard versus like bigger, like say mid-range or So when you say what's a perfect 3-board quiver, are you talking about the person that is more of a shortboarder, or are you talking about like a guy my age who maybe who rides a little bit bigger board, just wants to have fun? So it really depends on which surfer you're talking about. A lot of guys these days, they want a mid-range board in their quiver, and they use that mostly a lot. And that's going to vary too, because if you're a diehard shortboarder, your mid-range might be a 6'2" or a 6'4" or 6'6", and to me that's a shortboard. You know what I mean? Once you start getting older and want to catch more waves, you want more length, so the mid-range is going to be like anywhere from 7 to 8 feet on an individual basis with the surfer, really, when it comes down to what your 3-board quiver would be. You kind of need multiple boards. If you're a true surfer, you don't want to drive with a putter and you don't want to putt with a driver, and you need the kind of in-between wedges. So
what's the closest board to a mini golf all-around putter?
Well, are we talking shortboarder here? It's just going to have to be a good curvy outline. Something that if it's too narrow, then not be as user-friendly. If it's too fat and wide, then you're not going to rip on it.
Like the difference between picking the green club and the black club at Congo Falls.
Yeah, pretty much, I guess.
One, you're going to be crouching too much, you can't focus, and maybe the other one's too long.
I think really what it comes down to is everyone needs to be treated on an individual basis.
Yeah.
You can't assume that one size fits all. Come to someone that has, a good knowledge and can help guide you picking the right board, because it's definitely not an easy thing. So you have to kind of almost read their mind and try to figure out what board that they're giving you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they will give a lot of that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much,
man.
Brian.
Yep.
I'm confused.
I don't know if
After talking to Brian, I kind of realized that we can make this process as simple or as complex as we want to. In a very big way, he did agree with Kevmo on the 3-board quiver. He also agreed which board should be in it: a fish, a shortboard, and a step-up. The main difference was, instead of a high-performance wide as a daily driver, he more or less suggested a fish for most conditions. A big topic that he touched on was buoyancy, also known as float, also known as volume. Your board needs to float you. I also like that he mentioned that you can really ride any board you want in any conditions, because as surfers, we seriously need to get out of the box. Surfing is oddly a very judgmental sport, and casual weekend warriors who have no idea what they're talking about will literally stop me on the beach and ask me why I'm riding certain types of boards. My reaction is always the same: because it's fun. I think we need to remember why we're doing this sport in the first place. It's for stress relief and to unwind. Most people will never need a high-performance shortboard, ever. So from here, I feel like there's more. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
We had this epic random occurrence where we started filming this video about how to pick the best surfboard, and John Pizell is in town. He's like one of the best shapers in the world. So we're gonna hopefully get a little insight from him too. Bringing a lot of value to this video. Hope you guys like it. You can show us that you like it by liking this video down below and hitting subscribe for the dream. We gotta see, what are we eating here?
Organic veggie sticks from Thrive Market.
Sick. We're making a video about how to pick the best surfboard.
Whatever Marino tells me to.
Do you have one?
Hmm?
What is it?
Hurricane Cobra.
Oh, nice. All right. What's your height, weight, and skill level?
6'3", 280. Good when it's big, terrible when it's small.
All right. Have fun in there.
Are you leaving?
No.
Oh.
I'm coming with you.
Brett actually makes a good point. Most people shouldn't have to worry about all this. So it's a good technique to simplify your life and just go into a surf shop or to your local shaper and ask them to tell you what you need. The simple answer often is the right one. Now let's get in this shop and go see John Pizell. John is a world-class shaper out of Hawaii who shapes surfboards for 2-time world champion John Florence. If you're shaping surfboards for a world champion, you probably kinda sorta know what you're talking about.
Basics for picking a board for anybody is like, you gotta assess your ability. And I think the biggest, you start with honesty. Honestly, how much do you weigh? Honestly, how good can you paddle? Honestly, how good are you at surfing? And if you get all that stuff without being like,
do you find that there's people that order a lot of boards that embellish maybe their ability a little bit?
Well, everybody, I think most people think they surf better than they do, like myself included. And then you like see a video, you're like, oh yeah, that vertical snap I did was like more like a 9 o'clock snap or a 3 o'clock snap, whatever. The thing I get a lot is people go, yeah, so I weigh like 195 right now, but I'm gonna be 180. So like make me this board for when I'm 180. And then yeah, so then I just go, I think it would be a better idea to just go with the 195, you know? Like that's one of the big things. Just figuring out like what you're gonna be using the board for is super important. Most boards have kind of specific areas that they're good in. So if you get a board for waves that are this big and kind of weak, and you end up surfing double overhead waves that are really hollow and whatever, it's not gonna be a good board, or the other way around. So just kind of assessing everything really honestly is the biggest thing. And ideally you have somebody you can talk to that's like, hey, I got an idea, like this thing will suit your needs or whatever. Pretty simple, but don't try to fool yourself. The other thing too is what sometimes people do is they want to progress. They're like, if you're on a progression scale, or you're all, hey, I'm getting better, I'm riding this board now, I want to get better. I'm getting worse. I'm 55. A lot of people are getting better at surfing. If you take too big of a step, instead of going like one little step, you go like 2 steps, and then you're going to go backwards. So you're going to be like, surfing sucks. Like I can't even catch a wave. That's got like a big problem. So being able to realize, hey, I know I want to ride like the pro surfer guy board, but I'm just coming off my soft top learning skills. If you take that big jump, you're usually going to go backwards. If you take a little smaller step, and I'm not just trying to like sell more boards, like you're going to need to buy 3 boards to get to that, but just take your time. Pick the next proper step.
Once you're intermediate, do you think there's an all-around board that can cover 90% of your needs, or do you think at this point you're pretty much going to want a 3?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different kinds of ways that people live. Like if you just like live at one beach and surf down the street every day and you're going to go surf that same spot, then you're more likely to be able to do that. If you're traveling a lot and you're going to go surf different waves, or you're trying to push yourself into bigger waves or different kinds of more powerful waves, then having a variety of boards is going to help you, because you're going to be able to surf better in different conditions. Whereas if you have one board, it's definitely not going to be like good in all conditions. You're going to be giving up something in some conditions, and it's going to be better in some, worse in others. So having at least maybe 2 boards where you can have like kind of your shitty wave board and your good wave board, at least that's kind of a good balance. But I think the more options that you have, if you're surfing a bunch of different waves, the better off you're going to be. But if you're just like, I surf this one spot, that's my spot, you know what it's going to be like, and you don't need too much. Yeah, basic.
Thank you.
Sure, no
Appreciate
worries,
it.
easy.
Sorry for the ambush.
No, that's fine. I was just like, what are you going to like sit out, or is this going to be?
Oh, no.
No, that's.
I like how John made things very simple. And I also like that he touched on something kind of new for this video, a 2-board quiver, which is 1 board for bad waves and 1 board for good waves. In my opinion, a bad wave board could be anything from a high performance wide, like we talked about, a fish, an egg, or a mid-length, maybe even a longboard or a soft top. You're really just looking for something that can float you and get you into waves. Because in reality, when it's knee high, you're not even able to do high performance surfing for the most part. And the second board could be a step up of some sort. Maybe it is a high performance shortboard. Maybe it's even an egg or a mid-length, or maybe it is a tube shooter for those days that it's just offshore winds and absolutely barreling. But I think the main consensus was just don't get ahead of yourself and be realistic about your ability. After talking with a few people on the surfboard sales and manufacturing side of things, I wanted to see what a perspective looks like from a person who consumes surfboards. I know we chatted briefly with Brett, but I wanted to get a more in-depth take.
Whatever Marino tells me to.
And I figure there's no better person within a 5-mile radius of me than 2 of the best surfers to ever do it out of New Jersey, Rob Kelly and Matt Keenan.
I think the easiest answer is you need float, you need glide, and then you take in what your experience level is, and you kind of apply those 3 things together, and that leads you to the perfect board. I always start out with height and weight, start at 9 foot, and work our way down. If I'm an intermediate surfer, I can paddle, I can get to my feet, I can catch my own waves. Like, those are kind of all the things that you have in a conversation, but I think the most important thing is you got to have float. And as we sell surfboards and talk about surfboards, I always say 2 things. You're not getting any better if you're not catching any waves. And if you're not catching any waves, you're not surfing. So that is the real core nucleus of what you want to do when you're trying to buy a surfboard. You want to get a board that you can go out, and at times it may be too big for you when you're starting out or even at different phases of your surfing career. But if you're not catching waves, you're not surfing, period. So I think that that's really where you start.
You get a lot of people ordering boards who might embellish their ability a little bit or might be thinking that
Everyone. I talk everyone out of their boards.
Even though I've been surfing for however long I've been surfing, I feel like I just kind of figured out how to pick the right board for me. For years doing the contests and everything, I always thought that you wanted to have like the most performance bladey kind of shortboard, and that's what I've put all my focus on. And then recently I kind of took a step back now that I'm not traveling as much and realized like the majority of the time, especially here on the East Coast, one, we're either groveling, the waves are small and you need something big and floaty, skatey, just like a good groveler board. And then as soon as it gets to head high, a lot of times the waves are barreling, it's breaking close to the beach, so I jump right to a tube shooter. So that board that I used to think was the board that, you know, I needed the most, that I would ride the most, is actually a board that I don't really ride that often. That's my performance shortboard. East Coast speaking specifically, if you have a good groveler and a good tube shooter, you're pretty much set. You don't need to have this like extensive quiver. Obviously, it's if you have the ability to have, you know, a bunch of boards, then yeah, you want to fill in all the gaps.
I can smell that freshness.
But for me, having a good groveler, something like this, 5'6", a lot of volume, a little shorter than I would ride on my shortboard, something that catches waves good, gets a lot of speed without having to try.
What's your volume on those?
This one's 26 liters.
Holy.
So that's kind of my volume
What's
universally.
Like your shortboard?
Around 26 liters. Okay. So
This is one thing we haven't touched on yet in this video. Volume is simply how buoyant your surfboard is. For a little context, you could have a 6-foot board with 50 liters of volume that's so floaty it's hard to turn. Or a 6-foot board with 25 liters of volume that would literally sink to the bottom when I tried to paddle it out and sit on it. You can also have everything in between. Things do not change much in surfing, but one thing that kind of rocked the surfboard industry and took the world by storm was the word volume. Back in my day, they didn't even have the volume metric on a surfboard. You could literally order the same board, the same size, same specs from the same shaper, and have two completely different boards because their buoyancy was completely different. But now, it's all that anyone can talk about. Some shapers use it, and some shapers won't even acknowledge that it exists. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a good and simple number that people can give themselves and apply as a starting point for a brand new surfboard.
And that's the thing. Everyone's trying to mess with their liters. Like, once you figure out your liters, I know it's like such a weird thing, you apply that over. So it's like if our standard, Rob rides 26, I ride about 25, 25 and a half. I fluctuate knowing, like, for my winter board, I know that I want more paddle and more float, so I just bump it up to 27. So in my gear, but like everything's based off that initial 26 liters for us, and then it kind of fluctuates. So also everyone gets stuck on buying boards. Well, I need this many liters. And I think that liters, when you're a really good surfer, or an advanced surfer, you can tell a lot of difference. But a lot of times when I'm making boards for Groms or I'm talking to just our everyday customer, they focus on, oh, I need 28 liters. And I'm like, well, how much do you weigh? They're like 190. And I'm just like, well, I'm 140 and I ride 26.
I was just gonna say my winter step-up board is 35 liters.
Yeah. So, but it also, it's a lagging indicator. It's something that like a lot of people get really caught up in, and I really think for anyone that's looking at boards, you have to be really, you know, transparent with yourself and be like, all right, what am I riding right now? That's the first question I ask. How are you catching a lot of waves? Well, kinda. Well, are you kind of catching waves or kind of not catching waves? It's pretty much like black or white, and then you just kind of build in that conversation. But I always caution everyone, go thicker than you need because you want to catch waves. And then it's really easy to be like, all right, this board is 6.0, 28 liters. I can go down and get speed. I'm feeling like it's just too big for me. I go to turn and my board wants to go out the back. And then that's when you start to make the fine tuning, you know, the adjustments that make that board go from good or average to great is when you start to fine tune. But I mean, I'm 50 years old almost. I'm still refining my boards all the time. But like Rob, I pretty much ride 5.6s every day, and I ride 5.9s in tubes, and that's pretty much it. I have 5.6s and a 5.9.
yeah, and actually that's exactly what these two boards are. If I had only two boards all season to surf, these two boards could get me through the entire year. Gravel, even if it gets chest high where I would want to ride a shortboard, I can get away with this 5.6. And then as soon as the waves start to get hollow and barreling, I'll jump up to this 5.9. That's a tube shooter. This one doesn't have it, but a lot of times I like to go with a 5-fin setup. That essentially, in my opinion, it makes one board kind of turn into two. So if the waves are super peaky, kind of shorter period barrels where you're doing a lot of stalling and kind of speed control, I'll ride it as a thruster. And then once the period gets kind of longer, you get those big winter swells where it's drifty and you're just dropping in and going as fast as you can, ride it as a 5-fin, then boom, you have one board that'll get you dialed no matter what the conditions are when we're talking about barreling waves. And then for the groveler, I just always kind of go tri-fin because I know a lot of guys really like quads on their grovelers. I've never really messed around with it, so it's always just 3 fins for me on the grovelers. But when you have a board with 5 fins, it does kind of give you that luxury where it almost makes 2 boards out of 1.
Are these all your step ups?
Yeah. So this is a 5.6, 5.9. I'll ride these 2 boards 90% of the time I'm surfing, in Jersey at least. And then once the waves get bigger, you know, those 1 or 2 swells a year, the big Wednesday swell or Stella, that's when I'll jump up to either a 6.0 or a 6.2. But again, that's super rare. Maybe you get 1 or 2 winter storms a season where you need to go a step up, at least here in Jersey. But it's nice to have that extra paddle power, especially if it's super drifty or windy, which kind of comes with all those winter swells that we get. But again, 90% of the time, these 2 boards can get me through the whole year surfing here in Jersey. So this is like probably 31.5 liters, 6.2.
That's as big as it gets.
Monstrous Monday type
Really?
swell.
That
Yeah,
board?
yeah.
Because he packs the leaders in, gets all the float. Float is the most important thing, I think, in surfboards these days. Because you can play with the length and you can fluctuate, but if your board's not keeping you above the water, you're just doing yourself a disservice in the water because it's just so hard to get momentum and turn around and time the wave and all that. One thing I just live by is make sure you have enough foam under your chest.
Are you no fishes? You just ride the...
No fish. I don't ride.
guy?
Yep.
Thumb or square tail for me. A lot of times on my grovelers will ride a square tail, but definitely thumbs on all my.
I only ride thumb tails. And then I ride like a twin trailer, which is just a little wider nose board, but again, I ride as a tri-fin. I don't ride twin fins. I don't really ride quads. Thruster guy. The anomalies over here.
I'm like a 12-board quiver, but 8 of them are soft tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if I were to do the 3-board quiver, it'd be these 2 and then add a soft top.
That's sick.
I mean, yeah.
Is there an all-around board that someone could buy? Like, that would cover all the bases, 2 foot to 12 foot?
If you had to pick just one board, I think that you could get sort of a hybrid between the groveler and a step-up board in something that's like, see, this is a 5.9, this is a 5.6. Maybe go 5.7 or 5.8 that has the volume that the tube shooter has, but into the groveler. With that, you're going to kind of make sacrifices on either side. Your groveler is going to be a little too big and not as quick, and then your tube shooter is not going to be as much of a sort of powerhouse. But the outlines of both of these boards are pretty similar, so you could almost get away with a one-board quiver.
I'm looking at if you do any difference in your rocker.
A
little more obviously in that.
Yeah, for the tube shooter board.
But not crazy.
No, if you had to get away with one board, and again, I'm a big advocate of the 5-fin because then, you know, even more so if you're only down to one board, at least having.
But that's
the
only
5-fin
going front side too. You don't go quad backside.
Yeah.
Do you?
Oh yeah. It doesn't.
I
don't go quad based on front side or backside. I go based on the type of wave.
Yeah.
Do you go quad ever?
I only go quad in racy forehand tubes. I feel like backside I slide out too much, although I'm the worst backside barrel rider ever. So for me, I feel like the quad I slide out and make a lot of mistakes, whereas frontside it's just like you just take off and park it. But Ben, you can ride anything, a door, a table. It's wild, and you can get tubed and make it like look really drivey, which is weird. It's a compliment, I swear to God. Like you can make anything look drivey, and it doesn't make any sense. I teach lessons on the software, and I cannot even go from the outside to the beach without falling, and you like ride it in tubes, so you've got it figured out.
Well, I'm always just trying to discover like if high performance boards even suit me.
I gave up high performance boards like 8 years ago. Don't even try.
About like how much glide I can get out of a board for whatever reason.
Yeah, you realize I used to think that was the most important thing, that performance shortboard. Like that was the board in my quiver that I tried to dial the most, that I ordered the most of. And then when you kind of step back and look at it, when, you know, especially on the East Coast, when's the last time you got like a head high rippable wave or like a 6 foot rippable wave?
Literally never.
Yeah, once it comes chest to head high, we're chasing barrels.
And 6 foot rippable lowers, I was still on a 5.6.
It's not like you're getting that Rocky Point wall where you can like
No, it just doesn't exist on the East Coast.
And I don't really need to surf like that. I just want to have fun and go fast and get a bunch of waves and
yeah, even
have
us
fun.
sort of like as pros realizing we don't really get that wave that often. The average person's even getting that even less. So it's probably better to focus on, like I said, a good groveler and then a good tube shooter.
Sick. All right, thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Today we talked about a lot, maybe too much, but honestly, so many doors were opened in this video that I almost have to make a follow-up video. But I also feel like there's going to be a follow-up video to the follow-up video. So just like our desire to continue to buy new surfboards, I believe our quest for the knowledge about surfboards is also never ending. For the final tally, we have 2 people for a 3-board quiver, and I happen to agree with that. So make that 3 people. That would be some type of fish, a high performance wide, and your tube shooter step up. We've also got 3 people who suggest a 2-board quiver. That would be 1 groveler / high performance wide, and 1 step up for when it gets bigger or starts barreling. We also have 1 person that suggests the 1 board, buy whatever they tell you approach.
Whatever Marino tells me to.
But after everything we talked about, the 1 board that pretty much everyone agreed on was what Kevmo referred to as the high performance wide. Rob and Matt called it a groveler, but it's essentially the same idea. I can't reiterate enough that this type of board will get you through 2-foot to 8-foot surf and sometimes even bigger. So in my very unprofessional opinion, if you are going to buy 1 surfboard for all types of conditions, it should probably be a high performance wide. It's a few inches shorter than your normal shortboard, a little bit wider with a little more volume and a little more float. So you can ride those knee-high days, and you can also ride something that you're comfortable in when the waves get overhead and barreling. Now, when the waves do get throaty and big and a little scary, things can get challenging, but 90% of the time, the waves probably aren't like that. I know they aren't for me, so a high performance wide, I can get away with most of the time. But with all that being said, every single human being on the face of this planet is different, and our emphasis should be on simply having fun. If you want to longboard a hurricane swell or ride a high performance shortboard at the pier and not catch anything, who am I to judge? I'm just some kook that rides soft tops.
Why, dude, oh my God. There's no way that wave is that big. There's no way that wave is that big, dude. Holy tarnation.
I hope everyone enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you next time for the dream.